Thank you for watching, liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing right now.
So I saw Chris at lunch, and we were just talking about this same thing which he just said, which is that, this trust is life is not worth living if you don't have trust. And I thought it was great, and I left, and I went outside, and I went around the corner, and I walked out onto the platform over here, and there was a young lady taking a video, kind of a video podcast like this, and she was talking. And I walked past her, and I thought, how many times have you done that when you're trying to do this, right? And so why can't I hold it for her? And so I went over, and I said, well, would you like me to hold that for you? And she thought for a minute, and she said, well, okay. So I took the camera, and I turned it around, and we shot the video, and she started talking about how excited she was that this woman had sent her to Nomedex, and what a great experience it was, and now she was a social media expert. And she said, and I got to meet Chris Prillo, and he's the sexiest man alive. And I'm thinking, is she kidding? I'm only kidding. But I'm thinking, I'm just teasing. But the thing that really is that, you've talked so much about technology here, and you're so much about all this wonderful technology. And I'd like to talk to you about the subject of the heart, because they go hand in hand. And if we're not, technology, just look at what we were just seeing here this morning. It's incredible, that we're learning, and our knowledge is doubling and tripling, and we're growing. But how are we doing on the other side of trust? So I'm talking about the trust of competence. Like, there's two different kinds of trust, right? The trust of competence, which my surgeon or my pilot, they're competent. But are we really focused on also the behaviors? Because our society needs to evolve just as quickly, because we just heard about how and satellites could actually cause a lot of damage to all of us if we're not careful about our behaviors. So I want to focus you in on trust. I think we're at the last slide here. Let me just take us to the first slide. So this is I want to talk about it. Chris talked a little bit about this idea of just do it or get it started. And what is it? What exactly is it? And I would like to suggest that I'd like to define it for you a little bit, at least my definition, if you wouldn't mind. I'd like to give you my definition of trust, and because I think it's connected to it. And this it is something that I think we can talk about as a way to redefine how we think about trust. Okay. So just lost my train of thought. Let me get it back. So it is basically integrity and trust. I look at it as an integrity and trust. And it's those two things combined. So it's not only, and when you think about integrity, what's the difference between integrity and trust? You think about it, everybody actually knows the answer to this question. So what is the difference between integrity and trust? Right? So, yep.
Trust is viewed upon you by others, but integrity is something you generate yourself.
Beautiful. See, everybody knows the answer. You know what? You can ask a 7-year-old that question or a 70-year-old that question, and the answer is always the same. See, integrity is happening inside of you, and trust is happening between you and somebody else. So integrity is happening inside of you, and trust is happening between you and somebody else. This is really important, because that's why when you define it, it is trust. Let's just start with defining trust. Trust is reliance on integrity. Reliance on integrity. So it's ROI. That's the good news. You get a return on investment for trust, right? And integrity, so now you have to define another word. Trust actually has a sister word, so it doesn't stand on its own. So now you have to define what is integrity. Integrity means to be whole. And I think this is a really important concept, because when you think about your own integrity, is that when you have it together, when you have all of your integrity, when you have yourself together, people say they got it together, she's got it together, he's got it together, they're put back together. And that's what I think we're talking about, is your own integrity. You've got all the pieces of you together. And there's no separation between you and the other parts of you. And so that's what integrity is. Now, I have a thought about this trust, how to think about trust. This is a hypothesis. So I'm going to put this idea in your mind, and you can accept it or not accept it, but it's the basis. It's really just a hypothesis for right now. I'm thinking about this issue of trust as being a space between you and me. And so it's almost like a trust ecosystem. So the more, think about this. Think about like an ecosystem, right? So how clean and how healthy that ecosystem is depends on, it depends on how well it's developed. And if there is corruption in there, pollution in there, there's particles in there, it can't operate as well. And so integrity and trust are related, and there's an ecosystem. And the question is, are we contributing to cleaning up the ecosystem, or are we taking away from it? So when you have a relationship with somebody else, how clean that space is, how there's no particles. And this could be your family, this could be your business, this could be the people in your community, this could be a country. So those are the things that are really important. I want to take a step back and talk to you a little bit about how I got to all this, right? So my family business was about bringing competitors together. We used to bring people in the same industry together and form a partnership. And this was all about trust. We had to figure out how to build trust. And so we spent most of my adult life trying to figure out how to get people to collaborate. So trust became very interesting to me. On the flip side, this morning, Trish was talking about this idea of, redeveloping education. And I was spending a lot of time there too. See, I wasn't the world's greatest student. And so, and that was mostly because I was frustrated with the way that I was educated, kind of having this row and being in line and being structured. And I wanted to play, I wanted to collaborate, I wanted to build. And so we went back into the school system 15 years ago and said, what about if we flip the model on its head? And this is all about trust. We said, what about if we trusted the students to actually run the classroom, to decide what they wanted to learn? And the teacher was the facilitator. And it started with 6 kids and it exploded out to being 300 kids. And now they actually run 6 different little businesses in the school and they make money with these businesses. And it's really amazing. But it's about trust, right? So trust has always been very interesting to me. Then I said, well, I want to write a book. Well, the reason I wanted to write a book was not so that much that I knew a whole lot about trust. I mean, I learned a lot. But you know what? All of us know a lot about trust, right? Trust is, everybody has, trust knowledge. I wrote a book because I wanted to learn more. And I got to a certain phase and I said, you know what? This Chris Prillo looks like an interesting guy. I want to go out to Gnome Deck. So last year in August, I'm sitting back up in that back row over there, and I'm watching this community, the community that you've created. And I'm thinking, this is the way that life should be. This is the way that it could be. This is the way it should be. It's about collaboration. It's about sharing ideas. It's about trust, right? There's a lot of great people, it's a great environment. But it's not like this outside. You leave Gnome Decks, it's not like this, right? So I was sitting there thinking, what about if, I really believe that trust is the number-one issue, the lack of trust, in our world at this time, and maybe of all time. That trust, it underlies everything. So let's go back to that trust ecosystem I was talking about. Think about our environmental system and how if we really had trust with each other, how that would be impacted, right? So I really think trust is the number-one issue. So I decided to take 1,000 days of my life and said, what about if I just dedicated it, not as a business, not as a way to make money, but as a way to make a contribution and a way to learn. I just want to understand this issue. If it is the number-one problem in our world, the lack of it, then why wouldn't you focus on it? Why wouldn't you take time to really focus and learn on it and see if we can do anything to raise the level of trust, right? So I started on this journey, 1,000-day journey. And I figured Thanksgiving Day would be a great day to start, right? Why not? So I'm very thankful. We started Thanksgiving Day 2009, and I kicked off. And my idea was to go visit as many people as I could that had something to say about trust, that knew something about it. And so I did that. And let me just show you one. I forgot to use my slides. You don't mind, right? So this is just a quick slide I want to show you before I tell you a little bit more about the trust tour. What it's all about. Look at this. And this is amazing. This is the corruption perception index. It's done by Transparency International, an organization in Munich, Germany. And it basically shows exactly, the darker places are the places that are most corrupt, and then the places that are lighter are less corrupt. And you can kind of see the challenge that we really have in the world, how bad things are. And I think I was going to say I could take you and focus your energy on how bad things really are. But I think we heard it from Austin this morning, right? He got robbed, right? And he's working with this issue in Iran, which is incredible. I mean, just think about the corruption that's going on in Iran, the control, the fear that's there, And talking about fear, I just want to share a couple of fears with you before I tell you a little more about the Trust Tour. I'm afraid that when I talk about this issue, I always am afraid that people think, well, if someone's talking about trust, what are they selling me? What's the snake oil thing, right? So I have that fear. And I share this with you not because I know you're thinking this, but because they're my fears, and if I put them out there, they disappear. The second fear that I am concerned about is that you think this trust conversation is superficial. Oh, we're going to go around and hug everybody. It's not going to be real. We can't really do anything, Todd. It's so difficult. There's so much corruption. How are we really going to do anything? And my third fear, which is the deepest one of all, and the one I fear the most, is that you don't think that you're contributing to the problem, or that you're not part. I don't mean that you are a corrupt person, but that we think it's not about us. I've been honest. I'm a good person. It's about the other people, right? So let me tell you a little bit more about this Trust Tour that we're going to go on here. And it's going to be slide through. I don't even know why I brought slides, except for this one. I think you need to see this. This is day 25. I went to see a fellow named Seth Goldman. Now, Seth Goldman is, have you heard this, Honest Tea? You see this in the stores out here? Is that West yet? Okay. All right. So Honest Tea. So Seth Goldman, I met Seth 5 or 6 years ago, and we were talking. I should have invested in his company. We didn't get that right. But when we were talking, he told me his story. He said, Todd, I'm a runner. I like to run. I ran the New York City Marathon. I finished. I grabbed a bottle of iced tea. He wouldn't mention the brand, and drank it down, and then promptly got sick. He said, why can't they make an honest tea? Why can't they make an honest tea? There's 7 spoons of sugar in that tea. And, what they're trying to do is draw me back in to get hooked on this tea. Why can't they make an honest tea? So he decided he was going to get a tea and create it himself. He was going to make his own tea. He put 1 spoonful of sugar. If you taste honest tea, it doesn't have that real sweet taste to it. And he brought it down to Whole Foods, and he got his first order. And then he took off, and he got a second order, and third, and fourth. And he's now the #1 organic tea in the country. And I missed that investment. But when he asked Seth, what is the brand of his company? What he says is, it's honest. Really, it's about honest. So trust, my first learning experience, and we're talking about trust in business right now. Trust is about, you can make money with trust. It can help you be successful, right? So let me take it to day 102. I met this gentleman. His son is Joseph McDonough, and his son had passed away at 14. He died of cancer. And he was really devastated by it. And he decided to start a foundation called Be Positive. His son's blood type was B positive. So he decided what he would do is start this foundation to help other families that were losing their children understand what their options were. And so we spent quite a bit of time talking. Really amazing guy. And as I was talking with him, about a month later, this happened. My sister we found out she had stage 4 breast cancer. And so you can't see it so well. We shaved our heads. It's my friends and my brother, and we shaved our heads. Now I didn't have to do as much as the rest of them, but it wasn't quite the contribution the rest of them had to make. But we shaved our heads. But here's the important thing: as a result of the Trust Tour, I've got a chance to meet some really interesting people, and they have. And I wanted to help Jody with this cancer. How can we find the best people in the country? And we went to find some of these doctors, and we found one in New York, supposed to be the best oncologist in the area, and we were asking, what are Jody's options? And he was saying, well, you have this option, you have that option. And she said, well, which one should I choose? And he said, well, the one that you trust the most, because he had, after all this time, instead of talking about just the chemicals, he said, we believe there is something that happens on the cellular level when you really believe, when a person believes this can help them. So we learned a little bit about trust in the medical field. So I'm trying to develop a tapestry, right? A tapestry of different conversations in trust. So in the medical field, we learned a little bit about trust. For those who are closer to my age, you'll remember this guy. This is Larry Holmes, the heavyweight champion of the world. And I met with Larry, and I didn't quite learn as much about trust, but I learned about something about honesty. Because I'm talking to Larry, and he's telling me about his life and what he believed in. And I said, Larry, tell me about trust in boxing. What did you have to trust? And he said, really, Todd, he said, I don't have to trust too much. He said, I don't like, I didn't get into boxing and get hit in the face. I got into boxing because I make a lot of money. And that's really what I'm about, is I want to make a lot of money. So, but what Larry was saying, was he was interested, he was saying the truth. This is who I am. And so there's going to be people in this world that are less evolved and more evolved, right? But Larry is saying that, look, I'm interested in making money, and this is where I am. So at least he's being truthful, and you can do business with somebody like that. You can have a relationship with somebody like that because you know where they stand. They don't have to have the same exact values as you do. All right, so this is now, let's talk about entertainment. So we went from sports, right? Now we're into entertainment. It's day 160, I guess it is, right? Yeah. And so do you remember this, the Academy Awards last year? This big controversy. Roger Ross Williams won the Academy Award, Best Documentary, and then a woman came out who was who was the previous producer. He had fired her. In the middle of this, in national television, she came out and kind of knocked him off the stage. Remember this? And then she got up and made this announcement about how they made the movie, and and he kind of took a step back very respectfully and didn't say anything. And this became the big controversy. They call it the Canaan moment or something like that. So anyway, I interviewed him, and I said, tell me about this disrespect, this disrespectful experience. And what he said was, Todd, I really don't want to talk about that. What I want to talk about is prudence. And I said, what do you want to talk about? He said, well, prudence is the real story. That was a disrespectful experience. That was a bad communication. But the real story is about prudence. She has no arms. She has no legs. She's from Zimbabwe. She was treated like an animal. And now that she won the Academy Award, she's a real person again. So this is about, difference. So what I'm learning here from the entertainment industry about trust is differences in people, right? Differences, and to be able to collaborate even though people are different. They look different. So this is day 249. I'm interviewing Kenny the Monk. Kenny the Monk is a best-selling author, an Amazon top 10 best-selling author, the CEO of the Monk. And Kenny spent 15 years in a monastery before he became a consultant to business. He's a really interesting man. And he told me this. I thought it was this is about trust and religion, right? How are we doing with trust and religion? So Kenny told me that he spent 15 years in a monastery, and after those 15 years, he thinks he went from 2% to 3% in his integrity. And he thought, the point is, and I said, oh, that's interesting, Kenny. So you mean that we all have so much more to work on with our integrity? So we learned from, Kenny was this idea that we all have so much even the monks have a lot more to learn, right? And this is Dr. John, or Admiral John Grossenbacher. He's the head of the Idaho National Laboratory. And now we're talking about trust in government. It's day 266. And this is so I'm a little bit intimidated going to see this gentleman, to tell you the truth. Here's somebody who ran our entire nuclear subfleet. This is a man that's the head of the Idaho National Laboratory, which is where we design and develop nuclear energy. It's where we continue to experiment with it. It's where we deal with our nuclear waste. It's also the place where they develop technology for taking satellites into the space. And so I'm sitting with John. I said, and I went to visit with him. And during our dinner, I felt incredibly respected. It's almost as if I had done all these things. He has 10,000 people that report to him. He's done all these amazing things. He's on the highest level of our government. Probably one of the most, they don't trust just anybody with that responsibility, right? One of the most trusted people in the world. So I'm sitting with John, and he was treating me with incredible respect. So the learning I got from this gentleman was about respect. Incredible. Respect is part of trust. You have to give it to get it, right? And there's one other person I want to introduce you to that's not on this slide. His name is Steve Fugit. And Steve, I met him because I had heard he walked 29,000 miles around the country back and forth, and he's on NPR, this famous guy, and he was trying to help people who were thinking about committing suicide. And here's his thought was this. He said, when I sat down with him, I learned this from Steve. What he said was, Todd, well, first of all, you should know that the reason he walked all these miles was that his son committed suicide, and he lost his daughter to a drug overdose. So he was really in a tough spot. So what Steve taught me was this. He said, Todd, I want people to fall in love with the act of breathing, just to stay alive, just to be alive, just to love life. And he actually walked around the country with a sign that said love life on his back for a while, which is kind of interesting. And he also said this. This is a very important point. He said, I don't want any space between me and my fellow man. I don't want any separation. Remember I said before that integrity meant whole? When you have it all together, when you've got all the voices in you that are together, when you're the full person. What Steve is saying, that same thing applies to people. That's how you build trust. I don't want I don't want to hear about them. I don't want to hear about Democrat and Republican. He's a very religious man. And he said, I don't really tell people about my religion when I see them. I don't want Christians and Jews I don't want people to be Christians or Jews. I want them to be people. I don't want them to be gay or lesbian. I don't want them to be black or white. We're people. And what's happening in our society is that so many of us are, because we're different, or we think it's okay to annihilate the other party. I mean, is this what's happening in Washington right now? Instead of serving us, we're annihilating each other, right? So it's the idea, I don't want any separation. It's whole. We're a one country. We're one, one group of people. And so he taught me this philosophy. So I want to share this last thought with you here about trust. And what is my point in all this? And I like to try to bring it together. So first of all, I really believe this issue of trust is behind everything that makes you and I happy. I believe it's the most important issue on the planet. I believe that we need to spend more time thinking about it and feeling it and seeing what it is in our lives. And I think for you, the human circuitry, Gnomedex, the human circuitry, what is that about? The connections between all these people and technology, right? And if you can build trust and integrity into everything that you're doing, we can make a difference, right? You can start here, you can continue here. But what I'm asking you to think about is that idea of really noticing the lies, really noticing the corruption, and not being part of it. Because as you think about this, if you think about that ecosystem, you can either be a filter for that ecosystem so that we're closer together, or you can add to the pollution. In that, just the same way you can do in our environment, is that you can take it away, or you can clean it up, or you can add to it. And I'm asking you to really notice how much you're contributing to this, because we can't control anybody else. The only way to really do this is to start with ourselves and to clean up some of this trust ecosystem mess that we've created, because we really need it. We really need it bad. It's the most important issue in our world. It will change the way we evolve. So I share that thought with you, and that's it. Thank you very much.
Sorry, got about 5 minutes for questions, so we can probably take a couple.
That's cool. Go ahead.
Over there, go ahead. Teresa, go ahead.
Yeah.
So obviously, we don't live in a perfect world.
Right.
And even people with the very best of intentions to operate with integrity don't always do so.
Right.
Where's the space for forgiveness in this model? How do we get past the fact that no matter how good we are, we're always going to let each other down sometimes?
Well, Kenny the monk taught us that we're only 3%, integritous. So it's really just trying to hit the mark, right? It's just I know we can't make a huge difference here. It's going to be incremental, but we can shoot for the mark. We can raise the bar. And it's really all around this corruption. If you're aware of it, if you start for me, when I start noticing trust, it's in every little thing. It's in all these little conversations. It's everywhere. So it's the idea of raising the bar, not contributing to it, and trying to be a filter. So we're always going to miss. We're going to just aim for that mark, raise the bar on that mark. Yep.
Yeah, lot of good points made, and trust really relates to social media. I'm putting so much out when we're sharing. I'm putting out video, maybe text, maybe podcast, sharing so much of myself on the net. And I'm trusting everyone out there is going to do things with that and not do bad things with that. And then the respect part really made me think a lot about blog comments. It's so nasty sometimes. You really got to trust that people are going to deal with that content well. And, the annihilation, the why. Yeah, in blog comments, let's be respectful of what people put out. Even if you don't like it, you don't need to thrash it. This whole thing really comes together in a very nice way like that.
Yep. Wow, that's a good point. I look at all that and I wonder, that what they're doing is contributing to the pollution of the trust ecosystem, and it's making a mess. So how do we actually, build this relationship?
So after 1,000 days, or all these interviews you did, what one practical thing did you change in how you interacted to increase your trust factor?
Ooh, all right. A wise guy, huh? Yeah. Let's see. All right, so So what's happened to me, I mean, I wish I had more time. I lied to somebody more recently who's who's the head of Blue Cross Blue Shield in our region, right? And it was a woman, I've known her for a long time. She asked me to keep a secret. I didn't keep the secret. I told my management team about something that gave us an opportunity. It was to our advantage. She asked me, she helped me write the book. She asked me, Todd, did you say that? I eventually said, look, Ann, I said that. And I did this thing. I was red-faced. I was embarrassed. I said, I did this terrible thing. And she said, oh, Todd, that's no big deal. But she said, you didn't tell them, this piece about it, did you? And then I said, what? No, I didn't tell them about that. So second lie is even worse. So I look at day 50 on the internet. I've learned to tell the truth really, really tell the truth and stop the little lies within me and notice them with other people. So it's really, see, I feel like I put a pair of glasses on. I can see my life is that much better because of this. It really is.
Todd, what's your interpretation of your map that shows that the most trustworthy people are apparently English speakers and those in Europe?
Yeah. Of the map, interpretation of the map back here? Yeah. So.
Why are Canadians so comfortable?
Yeah. So I think, I don't know the answer to that. I do know that if you look at these countries that are more corrupt, if you look at their economies, they're very similar. They have equally as big problems. So I don't really have a good sense for why Australia and Canada are above the United States. So I'm sorry, I don't have a better answer. Yep. Fewer people? I don't know. Yes.
Hi, sorry. I'm kind of confused with this definition of trust. To me, trust is not a thing. It's a way that I make a decision.
Yes.
And I just wonder that it feels to me you're asking me to trust in trust almost.
Yes.
And actually, to me personally, it's more about integrity and honesty.
Yes.
And trust is not the same thing. And I just wondered if you could
clarify.
clarify.
Thank you for saying that. Trust is such a difficult thing to grab and talk about. All I want to do with this process is to bring awareness to your minds about how important this is. I don't know how to tell you to find your integrity. I don't know what trust means to you. I just know we need to raise the bar on it. I know we have to do better. And I know it's the most important thing on the planet. Those are things I'm really sure of. And I don't know how to affect yours. I just know I'm working on mine. I'm only one person, and I'm trying to get more people to do it. I thought maybe wouldn't that be good? Yeah, okay, thank you. All right, all right.
That would be good, and thank you, Todd.
Yeah.
I think we're good on time, right?
Yep.
Time?
Yep. There.
Okay.
All right, can I have 30 seconds to share? Thank you, okay. I have a gift for all of you, okay? So part of building trust is to be honest, and to be a little bit vulnerable, but also to pay it forward. So I have this bracelet on my hand right here, and it's just a simple little white bracelet. On one side it says trust. And just because I'm trying to bring more awareness to this issue, the bracelet is to remind you just to observe trust, not only in yourself, but in the world around you, and to keep it part of your life every day. Trust should be the number one thought in your mind every day, or every act if you can do it. But the interesting thing is on the other side of the bracelet is in red letters, and it says bust. So this one is for you when you actually do, and by the way, in the Duke University, every 10 minutes we extend the truth or we lie in a conversation. So when you do that, flip your bracelet over to the bust side, fix the error, turn it back to green, okay, on the other side, all right? That's it, thank you. I have one for everybody, they're in the back of the room. Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Todd.
That's fine, good job, thank you.